Opening Notion for the first time can be kind of scary. At first you're feeling like, yes, this is finally going to be the thing that gets me organized. But then you get into it and that little moment of panic hits and you're like, OMG, what am I even looking at? Well, you can kick that feeling of overwhelm to the curb because today we are diving into the basics of Notion so that you understand what options are available to you. You'll also be able to walk away from this video knowing exactly where you want to get started. Are you ready? Let's do this. If you've been around my channel for a while, you'll know that I love Notion, and I also love to create builds that are both time-saving and automated because life is busy and you don't want to spend more time planning than you are doing the actual thing. As a template creator, one of the most common complaints I hear about Notion is that there is a huge learning curve. I know so many of you want to be able to use Notion efficiently and well, and I get it because I was there too. My Notion sat unused for the first 6 months that I had it because I just felt so overwhelmed. But today we're gonna fix that because we're gonna be diving into all of the different Notion functions as well as how to make the most of them so that your system flows seamlessly. Notion has also added a lot over the past year. So even if you're familiar with Notion, this video might teach you something new. Whether you want to build your own custom Notion system or you want to use something pre-made like what can be found in my template shop, it's incredibly important to know how to use and navigate Notion well. So first, let's have a quick reminder of what Notion is. Notion is a productivity software. It is great for things like planning, project management, task management, and more. Personally, I think the software is so customizable that you could probably build whatever you want to in Notion. Well, maybe not anything, but you get the sentiment. I've had plenty of times where I've thought, Notion can't do that. And then lo and behold, I make it happen. So nothing is impossible. However, there are two things that I suggest you don't use Notion for. Number one is anything calendar related. There is a calendar view option for databases, but that's more for like seeing tasks in a calendar layout. Now I'm being a bit hypocritical here because I do add my events into a calendar view database in Notion, but that's mainly because I don't need to have a full-blown scheduling system at the moment. If you're looking for something that works like Google Calendar, then I suggest you just use Google Calendar. Notion did recently acquire a Cron calendar though, so I am keeping an eye out for that for future integrations. Number two is for customer relationship management or a CRM. I haven't seen people build these within Notion, but honestly, I recommend using Honeybook or Dubsado, something like that if you are a service-based industry looking for a CRM. These just have so many more automations available, and you can link them to Notion through Zapier if you want to keep your project management within Notion, which I do recommend doing that. Then lastly, before we jump in, I do want to encourage you not to be afraid to click on things and to play around. You can always use the undo button if you need to, but taking time to explore the system is how you're going to get to know it better and get good at using it. All right, let's take a look at Notion. Welcome to my life dashboard. This is where we are going to get started today, talking a little bit about the sidebar and the settings up in the top right-hand corner of the page. So first, let's start with the sidebar. It is over here on the left-hand side. I have mine hidden at the moment, and you can show it by just clicking on these three lines here, and you can see that it pops up. Inside the sidebar, we start off with your workspace up here at the top. If you have multiple workspaces, you can toggle between those using this button here. We next have the search bar, which means that you can search any page that's in your Notion if you need to find it very quickly. We also have updates, which this is essentially where you're gonna get any notifications from Notion. If you have any team members, you would get notifications from them, or if you have any reminders that are going off, they will show up here. Next, you have settings. This is gonna be your account settings. All of your personal information will be stored there. And then we have a new page button if you want to create a new page on your sidebar. Next, we have all of the pages in your Notion database over here neatly sorted. You have your favorites up at the top so that you can access them really quickly. And what I suggest you do for this area is to kind of have a dashboard. Like you can see I have my little life hub here. It's where I keep all of my like personal pages nested within that so that I'm keeping my sidebar really clean, but I can pop these open and see all of the pages that I have, but they're just not like populating up my sidebar and making it messy, so I can quickly get to where I need to. I can see my favorites, but I don't have like 10 million pages here. At the bottom, you can also find any pre-made templates that Notion offers in their little template spot here. You can also import things if you want to import from any other productivity software like Asana or Trello, you can do that there. And then there's also a little trash bucket in case you throw something out and you want to recover it. I like to keep my sidebar closed personally. If it is closed like this, you can just kind of like mouse over here on the side and it will pop open. But yeah, I like that because I just like having the full page width of all my things showing. Along the top here, you have your tabs. This is kind of like a web page. You have your little tabs of your web page of what's open. You can have different tabs open in your Notion as well, and you can open them by clicking on the plus button up here, or you have the option to right click on a page and you can open a new tab here, or better yet, you can click on the command or control key and then click and it will open in a new tab. You can also navigate back and forth between pages. So think of this like a web browser. If you're browsing the web and you want to go back a page from what you were looking at, you can do that here. So if I click into my weekly planning, I'm like, oh, I want to go back to my Life Hub after I got here. Then I can go ahead and hit the back button and it'll take me right back to where I was. Next, we have the share button over here. This is how you can share your page with other people. If you want, you can create a teamwork space where you can invite other people to your team, but you can also share for free to a certain extent some of your pages with people by clicking the share button, and then you can add somebody's email, invite them to the page, etc. There's also an option to publish your page to the web, so you can make this private where only people with the link can see it, or you can make it so that it is a public web page. Next, you have your comments. If there are any comments on the page, you can see all of them right there, so it's quick and easy. This is your updates area, so it basically shows everything that's happened, kind of like the history of your page, like the recent history, not all of it, but just some of the recent things that have changed on the page. And then you can also see how often the page was looked at with the analytics feature. And then here, this little star, this is where you can favorite a page so that it shows up in your sidebar as a favorite. We also have these 3 dots up here, and this is where a lot of the page settings are located. So if I open that up, you can see there's quite a few options here. You can change the style by changing the font, changing the text size, and the width of the page. So if you'd rather have it a full width versus just like a middle portion of the page showing. You also have the option to turn it into a wiki page, which is kind of just like a little thing that you can use to reference it. If you have SOPs that you want to keep in your Notion pages, that is a really great way to keep them. You can also move the page, so if you click on that, it'll give you the option to move it anywhere else in your Notion. You can also customize your page, so if you click on this, it shows some options for the top level discussion, the backlinks, and the page comments. The backlinks are wherever it was mentioned in any other pages, so here I have quite a few backlinks on mine. And then page comments, anything that anybody comments on the page, you can change the way that they show up. So it shows default, or you can show it as a minimal view, but this is kind of just a way to customize how things show up on the page. If you have a page within a database, it also shows the properties here, so you can change how those are viewed, and we'll look at that again later when we're looking at databases. Back here, we also have the option to lock the page, which means it can't be edited. We can get notified about anything that happens on the page. You can copy the link, you can duplicate the page, open it in a side peek. The undo button is here, and then you can look at your page history and your page analytics, which this is probably going to change a little bit based on whether or not you have a free version or a paid version of Notion. With the paid version, you get more analytics and more history of your page, so you can see the changes a lot longer back and restore that page if needed. You can also show pages that were deleted and delete the page. And then again, you can import like how you would import from Trello or Asana, and then export this page to a PDF. I have done that quite a few times, and it's very nice for printing purposes. At the bottom, you also have the option to add connections. If you have a Zapier account, this would be where you would do that, but you can add any connections that you want to here. Okay, so that is a majority of the settings and overall navigation of Notion. I have created a little page that we can go through and edit together where we can add in all of the blocks and take a look at what those do. So let's hop into this page. We're gonna go ahead and title it block repository. And now that we have a new page, we have a couple of customization options that we can do. One is to add an icon. You can use emojis, you can have a custom link, or use the little icons that Notion has, which I love personally. So I'm gonna do that. They even have a little Notion block, which we'll use. And then we can also add a cover by just coming here. You can upload an image if you want, you can use a link, but you can also just use Unsplash, which is awesome that they have that connected because it's a stock photo website where you can just grab photos for free, which is super nice. And I'm just gonna find one for bricks because we're using the blocks in Notion. Now, just like we talked about earlier, you can come up here into the page settings. I almost always put mine as the serif font, small text, and full width because that is my personal preference, but you can do whatever you want with your page. Now, if you take a look at the page, there are lots of different options happening here. You can do an empty page, write something with AI, import, templates, table, board, timeline, calendar, list, and gallery. So that's a lot of options. I'm just gonna do an empty page, but if you want to import, that would be, again, like importing from Trello. You can do a template, which would be one of Notion's templates that you can grab to start with. And then the table through gallery options are all databases. If you happen to choose one of these, that's totally cool. But just know that if you open that, it's going to turn into like a table, for example, and you're not gonna be able to add anything else to that page. It's only going to be a table. For today, I'm gonna choose an empty page so that we can kind of create what we wanna create here. And let's take a look at our options. Now, Notion is a blocks-based system, which is one of the reasons why it's so customizable. To add a block, you can click on the little plus button here to search for whatever block you want to add. Or you can click on this backslash and then start typing to find the block that you're looking for. Now, there are a lot of different commands that you can use, little shortcuts to get the block that you're looking for. I'm gonna go over just a couple of them, but I'm not gonna go over all of them because that is incredibly confusing. I don't even use most of them, but some of them are fun and easy to use. Blocks are always going to default to text, so that's what we're gonna start with because that is what it is defaulted to here. So here is my first block of text. You have lots of options when you edit this text. You can grab just a portion of it, kind of like if you were editing in Microsoft Word or something like that. A little bar pops open with lots of different options. You can bold, italicize, underline, strike through if you want. You can also add a link to a website. And then over here under the A button, you have lots of different options for the text colors. So you can change the color of the text as it is, and then you can also change the background of the text, and you can see how this looks highlighted and this looks colored now. You can always use shortcuts like the Command B or Control B, Control I, to get the bold and italicized look just like you would in most text editors. This is also how you add a comment. So if you want to add a comment, you can highlight something, click on the comment button, and then you can add your comment. And that shows up over here on the side. You can also, if you want to go back up here to the customization settings, go to customize your page, and change these to minimal, and then they pop up over here just like a little icon so that they're not taking up a ton of space on your page. So next we have a heading. You can type in the backslash heading to get those going, or you can use the shortcut, which is just a hashtag space for heading 1, two hashtags and a space for heading 2, and 3 hashtags and a space for heading 3. I'll go ahead and make a couple headings. So I'm going to do a heading 2, call it Notion blocks, and I'll put that at the top. And then a heading 3 of basic blocks, because that's what we're going through right now. The next option is a page, so you can make one of those just like we made on the very front page. I'm not going to do anything with it, but that's how you create one. So I'll just hit my little back button here, and you can see there is a page here now. You also have a to-do list item, which the shortcut for that is 2 brackets and a space. And then you can add items here and check them off when they're finished. You can also do a bulleted list. So that is a dash space to get a bullet going. A numbered list, which we can just go ahead and type 1, press space, and that will pop up. I can add a couple different items here so we see. And then when we go to 2, if we want to indent that, we can just hit the tab button here and it will structure your list and tab things in for you. Next we have a toggle list, and the shortcut for that is a little caret space, and then we have a toggle. This is a way to hide some text if you don't want to show it all the time. So you can pop the toggle here, write something inside, and then if you don't want to see what's inside, you can just close it and you don't have to look at it. We also have a quote block. So if you hit the quote and space, we get the quote going. A divider, which would be 3 dashes for the shortcut. Something called a call out, which I actually love using. They're pretty fun. You can pop those open. You can change the colors of those by going here. Pick whatever color that you want it to show. I'll do a green one for now. And then you can also change the icon, which is really fun. I'll make it a little firework, and then you can type in whatever you want into the call out. You can also add blocks. So if you make another divider, you can drag and drop that into the call out. Make a to-do list, you can drag and drop that into the call out. Whatever you want to show up there, it's kind of a cute way to add some color into your space, which is why I like to use them. Next, we have a simple table. If you just type in table, it will show up here as a simple table. And this just looks kind of like an Excel spreadsheet, but it's just a grid. There is nothing kind of special going on in the background. That would be a database, which we'll cover later. We also have columns. So if you start typing in columns, you can have the option to make 2, 3, 4, 5 columns, however many you really want to. You can create these automatically by dragging and dropping things places, but sometimes I have the best luck just creating 2 columns like this and then dragging and dropping things as I please. So we've got 2 columns going, and now I'm just gonna actually grab everything from the basic blocks. Whoops. If you kind of like click and drag, you can select multiple different blocks. And then using these 6 dots here, this is kind of like the grab and move spot for these. If you grab that, you can drag that under the columns we just created. You can see how the divider is only showing half the page there. That's how you know you got it in the column. Then lastly, one more other thing to mention is if you type in the @ sign and then start typing, you can mention people, you can make a reminder, you can mention a date, and you can mention any other page in your Notion. So if I want to find my daily planning page, daily planning, I can go ahead and add that right here, and it links to the page so I can easily get to it. Okay, so that is all of the basic blocks. Let's move on to the media blocks. The media blocks are all very similar. We have an option for a website block. So it shows up here as a web bookmark. It's just a little way to add in a website, but it shows a little icon from it and it makes it cute instead of just being the link. Personally, I don't usually seek out this block. If you just grab a link and then paste it in here, it's going to give you all of those options. So let me show you. I'm gonna paste this link, and then it says you can dismiss it, which just leaves it as a link. You can create a bookmark, which is what we were just looking at, which it creates kind of for you. And then you can also create an embed. I'm going to choose a bookmark just so you can see what that looks like. There we go. That's a little link to my Instagram bio link. And then if you're curious what an embed looks like, let me show you one. This is kind of nerdy, but I'm gonna take you to my Destiny page, which if you're a Destiny player, show up in the comments for me. I'm not alone here, I know it. But if you play Destiny, you probably have heard of brtech. It is an awesome app. It shows you all the stuff going on in the game. And I just went ahead and embedded it into my Notion page here. And yes, because it is kind of an app, it works as like a web browser within Notion. That's the best way I can describe it. So I can actually work around in this page, even though it's like a completely different website. Within my Notion page, I can click and see all these different things going on. And yeah, that's pretty cool. So if you have a page that you know is a web-enabled app type thing, you can use that as an embed in your Notion and actually work it like a website. It's not available for all web pages though, so normally I'm just gonna grab the bookmark there because that's the cleanest, most available option for all of them. So we can also add an image block. So it gives you the option again from Unsplash or Jiffy. You can search right from there, or you can upload or embed. You can also add a YouTube video. So if you click video, you can grab the link or upload a video. I'll just pop a link in there. Great video, you should go watch it. You can also do the same thing for audio, which if you use Spotify or SoundCloud, you're gonna love this one because you can stick it right into your Notion page. There is also a block for a file. So if you have a PDF, you can upload the PDF here. You can actually browse the entire PDF all the way through. It's pretty cool. And then lastly, you can add code. So if you're a computer science person, you love writing code, you can come here, grab the code block and write some code. You can also choose what language you're even looking at, so plenty of options for you. All right, let's move on to our advanced blocks. The first one we have is our table of contents. So if we just start to type in TOC, that will show up as table of contents. And it's going to automatically read all of the headings that are on your page. So if you're using the heading block, it's going to see that, and it's going to make a little outline of the page for you. Next, we have an equation block. So if you add that, you can add in any math equation that you want, and it's going to display in math terms. This is great for mathematicians, may or may not be useful for the rest of us. But another option is to do the same thing in line with your text. So all I have is a text block right now. If I type in $, and then I add in a k-tex equation, which is what this is based off of, I'm just using the math RM, which is a Roman font. And then inside I can write some text, so hello, and then close it with $ again, and you can get a completely different font within your Notion page. So this is really fun if you want to change up your aesthetics. I talk a little bit more about this in my Notion aesthetics video, so go check that out if you're curious about what k-tex can be used for. Next, we have a breadcrumb block. So if you're curious where in the world your page is within your Notion, you can type in this breadcrumb and it's automatically going to make the little link for you. If you look up at the top of your page, you're going to see the same exact breadcrumb. It's just sitting here in your page, and if you want to access it, that's a great option. Next, we have a synced block. So if I typed in synced block, we can pull that up, and basically it's a way to have one block in two different places and it shows the exact same thing. So if I type in hello again, I can hit this little copy and sync button and it will copy it to my clipboard, and all I have to do is paste. So now you can see we have two blocks here. If it's synced, you'll know because you'll see this little red border around it. And if I change either of them, it will change the other. You can also create synced blocks very easily by popping up to any of your blocks that exist now. You can click on the little 6 dots here, copy the link to the block, and then come back and paste it. And then you have the option to paste and sync. When you do that, it's going to create a synced block. So that's just a little cheat to make anything a synced block if you want it to. You also have toggle headings. So if you want your toggle block to be larger, you can get the toggle heading 1, 2, and 3, do the same thing that we did above, and it will show whatever is inside of it whenever you want. When you use the toggle headings, it's also pretty cool because it will show up in your table of contents. So if you see when I wrote this toggle, it showed up in the table of contents. Next, we have a button block. Now these are newer. Notion just released them probably 6 months ago maybe, and they are pretty darn powerful. I'm gonna give a little quick overview of them, but I am planning on doing a completely separate video all about buttons and all the cool things that you can do with them in a couple of weeks, so do stay tuned for that. But as you can see, you have the option to insert blocks, add a page. This is if you want to add a page to a specific database. You can edit pages in your databases, and then you can also open a specific page and show confirmation to know that whatever it was that you did with your button actually happened. So those are just some basic commands that you can do. If you find yourself doing something over and over and over again in Notion, you might want to use a button because that can probably be automated. Then lastly, we have our AI blocks. This is also a very new feature within Notion, and if you want the AI, you do have to pay to add that onto your account. I personally do. I have been trying to embrace AI a little bit more, and I have to say, Notion's AI is pretty darn awesome. I have used ChatGPT and I have used Notion's AI. I ask it the same exact questions and I am in love with the responses that Notion's AI gives me versus like ChatGPT. So yeah, I use that a lot more than I use ChatGPT to be honest, because it's just a really great AI program. So if you want to use AI, all you have to do is press the space button and then you can ask pretty much anything, just like ChatGPT. There are lots of different options here to get you started if you need a prompt, or if you want to edit something that's already on your page. It will summarize your page, it will add action items from your page, all these different things, but you can kind of go through and explore this section on your own and play around with it a little bit. I do believe every account gets a couple of free AI entries before you do have to pay for it, so you can play around with it a little bit and see if you like it. All right, then last but not least, we have our database blocks. Database blocks are the most powerful blocks in Notion because you can do so much with them. When you start typing, you can see there is tons of different options. There is both inline and full page options. And just know that if you click on the full page option right here, it's going to open a brand new page, and it's going to be, again, a page that you can't edit. It's only going to be that table, for example. If you don't want to create an entire new page, you can click the inline option, and then you get the database right here within your page. As you can see, there are 6 different views available. You have the table view, the board view, the gallery view, which is very similar to the board view, it's just not organized into columns, the list view, the calendar view, and a timeline view. If you don't like the view you chose to begin with, you can always change it later, no pressure. This is very flexible, so don't be afraid to try new views. For example, I use a database to capture all of my to-do items. I enter all of them into the database as a table, as you can see here. But on the day that I need to do them, I prefer to see them in a board view. So on my to-do page, this is how they show up. Completely same database, different view. In this video, I'm going to go over some of the database basics, but I do have a whole entire video dedicated to Notion databases because that is a huge thing to learn. And in that video, I detail all 6 of the view options as well as all of the property options. So do be sure to check that video out because today we're only going to be looking at the table view to maximize the amount of things I can teach in this video. So we've already kind of created our first database here. I'm going to call it the example database. And it's really easy to think Excel here right away, but don't go there because while there are some similarities, there are also lots of differences. Every single database is made up of pages. And at first that feels a little bit weird, but because they are pages, you can mention them anywhere in your Notion system, and that is a huge advantage. So for example, if I call our first page here, page 1, I can come up here, type in page 1 and link it just like we did with the daily planning page earlier. Your first column here is almost always going to be where your page lives unless you move it because you can grab and drag, switch it around like that, but it defaults to the first column here, so I always look there for the page. The following columns after your page is going to be all of your properties. Your default database usually just comes with a property called tags, which you can edit and add tags to, but you don't have to keep it like that. You can get rid of that one, add whatever you want to your database because it is your database. Just for now, I'm going to create 2 options, option 1 and option 2. You can open each of your pages by clicking on this little open button right here. And then it pops open your page where we have the same exact options that we had before with the page customization. You can open that, change the font, change the text size, and then you can also see your properties up at the top of the page. We didn't see that on the page we created earlier that we've been working out of because it was not part of a database. It was just a freestanding page. As I mentioned earlier, when you go to this customize page option right here, now we can see the properties as well as the other options to customize the page because you can change whether or not a property is being shown. So if I change it to always hide instead, it's going to be under this little toggle now, and if you pop it open, you can see it, but you also have the option to hide it. You can also change that setting right here from the side of the property by going to the property visibility and changing it there. Just know that if you choose one of those options to hide or show your properties, that change happens across the board. So no matter where you open a page from in your Notion system, if that page belongs to this database, those preferences are going to apply. It does not happen on a page-to-page basis. So how do you know if you want something to be a property versus something that you write down in the body of the page? Personally, I add as much information as I can to the properties because of 2 reasons. One, I can quickly and easily see that information and access it at the top of the page like you see here, or in the database itself, because you can see that in the table view. And 2, because you can filter your database with all of this information that you added to the properties. And this leads me into one of the main reasons I love Notion. When you create a database, you can have multiple views of that database with different filters to show different information. I'll show you a practical example of that in just a second, but first there are 2 options for doing this. Number 1 is that you can come up to the top of your already existing table and basically add a new tab. So you can click on this plus button. It's going to make a new view of your database. It does not have to be another table. It can be a board, a timeline, a list. And then I can go up here to the filter setting and I can filter it by the tags that are included. So I can make this one only show option 2, and then I can rename it to option 2 so I know. And then the original database I can rename to option 1 and filter that one to only show option 1. So there we go. We can see option 1 and option 2 in completely separate views. The second option is to create a linked view. So if you were to create a new block, you would type in linked view, click on that, and then you see that there is an option to select a data source. I can choose an already existing database, so I'm just gonna grab my example database that I already created on this page. And then I can copy an original view. So if I want to copy option 1 or option 2, I can do that. But I can also create a new empty view. And let's say I want to make this one a board view. And now I can sort this by option 1 and option 2. Now we have 2 different blocks, one up here and one down here of the same exact database. And those can go wherever you want them to. They don't have to be on the same page. They can go on completely separate pages, and you can access the information from that database somewhere else completely different in your Notion system. An example of this is with my weekly planning. I have a table view where I enter in my new tasks. Then below that, I have another table view of the same database that shows my tasks that are coming up within the next week. I keep that in both a list format and a calendar format so I can kind of see what's going on each day. And then below that, I have a someday list, which is all of the things that I need to do someday. That means that they are more than a week away on the due date. Now these are all the same exact database, they're just filtered down to show what I want for that specific section. And more specifically, they are filtered down by the date. Now let's talk a little bit more about properties. Your properties do not always have to be visible. For example, I have a lot of different properties to help me sort my tasks in my task database. But when I go to enter them into my table, I only included the properties here that I know I wanted to fill out that were related to my tasks. Everything else in my database is hidden at the moment. Also, if there is a filter on your database, then you probably don't need to show that property. Down here in my top priorities section, I have different views for my cleaning tasks, personal tasks, biz, etc. If we go to my cleaning tasks, you'll notice that I don't show the category that says that it is a cleaning task, because I know it's a cleaning task. This is filtered to show only cleaning tasks. But over here in my daily section that shows what's going on each day, you can see that I do have the categories showing so that I don't accidentally overload my plate. So don't be afraid to hide properties if you don't think you need to see them. That's totally okay. Here's an even more extreme example. If we head back to my Destiny page, I have a linked view of my task database that shows all the things I have to do in Destiny. I know, I'm a huge nerd. All of these properties here are very specific to my Destiny tasks, and I only ever show them in this view, even though those properties do still exist on all of my to-dos. If you're wondering why this isn't a completely separate database, that's a fair question. And the reason is that I wanted to be able to add a due date to my Destiny tasks that were time-based so that I wouldn't forget to do them. If I add a due date, then they show up in my daily and weekly tasks, like you can see here on my calendar. So that is the power of having properties in your databases. You can feasibly make 2 almost completely separate databases that actually work together because they are the same database. So when I get asked the question, how do you decide when to make a new database? My answer is almost always to create databases by topics. One topic, tasks. Another topic, events. Another topic, books. You can filter those by books you want to read and by books you have read. So hopefully that gets your wheels turning on different ways that you can segment your databases. Again, I do go into detail on each of the database views in my Notion databases video, so do go check that out. So what is the next step? I would encourage you to pick one area that you want to put into Notion. It can be so easy to be like, I have to add my entire life to Notion right now, but that is just going to fuel the overwhelm. Pick one thing, whether it be your to-do list, your meal planning, your reading list, just one, and then work on adding that page into Notion. Creating a Notion can feel daunting though, so let's talk about how to best use these blocks. Personally, I use most of the basic blocks here when I am writing down notes from books or courses that I'm taking. However, you can use them to create simple planning systems as well. When you're first starting out with Notion, I highly suggest using blocks that feel comfortable to you. If you want to create a setup using the to-do blocks for your task list, that's a great place to start. And when you're ready to create Notion pages that feel automated, you'll want to upgrade to databases. Personally, with my task system, I do all of my planning one time per week, and then having the databases and being able to filter them down to what you want to see helps me automate that, so all I see is what I'm working on for that single day and I'm done. I love that my tasks are updated automatically for me daily and I don't have to lift a finger. If that sounds amazing to you, you can grab my exact system that I use in Notion. I will link it down in the description below for you. Whether you choose to use basic building blocks for creating your planning system or you choose to use databases, it's incredibly important to have a workflow in either case. I talk about workflows a lot because they are just so important. I will drop the links to my workflow videos down below so that you can catch up on all the goodness. And also, if you want to see some examples of what Notion can do, you can check out all of my Notion tours. I will also link those down below. Okay guys, I know that was so much information, but I am so proud of you for making it all the way through. Notion is such an awesome system, and I know once you get in there and start practicing, you'll be golden. If you have any questions, be sure to drop them down in the comments below. I would love to answer them. And if you found this video helpful, be sure to give it a thumbs up, and I will be coming out with some new Notion tutorials very soon, so be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on those. I will see you guys in the next one. Happy Notion building!